I'll see you guys in the dark.
I am still unsure if this guy was nice or not. I was 22, and it was my second travel alone. And for economical reasons, but also to properly meet locals, I decided to use the couch surfing in Berlin and made my travel public. My first host was very nice and interesting, as well as my third. But between them, I still had a free night which I planned to spend in a youth hotel. Because my travel was public, a guy proposed to host me for the night. He had only 2 evaluations, but they were from real people who themselves had plenty of good evaluation. I thought a psycho would not have, and could not have, made so many false accounts on the couch surfing site. So I accepted, and we met in the street. He seemed absolutely ordinary, and welcomed me to his flat. I left my luggage at his place, and he took me for a walk in his neighborhood. He did not speak fluent English, which is kind of weird for a couch surfer. The goal of couch surfing is to meet people and talk with them. And he told me he had used a translation app to talk with me by message. I became a little uncomfortable during the walk. It was nice of him to offer me the guide, but something was wrong. I just told myself that it was a cultural thing. Once we went back to his flat, I asked for the bathroom, and he told me that I could take a shower. That is normal. And he told me several times during that short time I was with him. It scarcely added to the remarkable fact that his lube was inadvertently exposed to his entrance with the perfumes and other bathroom things. I noticed it when I first walked into his flat, but I thought he just did not hide it since most adults had a sexual life. By the time I was in the bathroom, he had removed his clothes, so he was wearing boxer shorts and a tank top. It felt weird, but my brother chills in his flat like that, so I just thought it was a normal man thing. He also had dimmed the lights in the main room. I took a glance in his fridge, and his kitchen in general. He had only alcohol, soda, and tea, nothing else. Not even a pack of pasta or ham, or anything simple to eat. He did not have a separate bedroom. His bed was in the living room. He was chilling in his bed. I politely told him that I need a little rest and wanted to take a nap. Since he had a huge sofa, I genuinely thought that this was where I was supposed to sleep, but I offered me to sleep in his bed with him. I started panicking and went to his kitchen to be alone. I decided my security was priority to politeness. I booked a night in the youth hotel on my phone. Then I pretended to need to wash my clothes to collect my luggage and evacuate this odd place. Later in the evening, he texted me to say he did not know what happened, but still hope I had a good stay in Berlin. I did not report him because it can be a possible misunderstanding. But still, unusual host, let's not meet again. I don't have a car, so Uber and Lyft is my main mode of transportation to get to work. This morning, I requested an Uber half an hour before I had to be there. And the pickup was supposed to take less than 5 minutes. But for some reason, my Uber driver kept going in circles. He ended up calling me asking for directions, and I was telling him exactly where he needed to go. And so was the GPS in the background. At that point, I was irritated and asked if there was a way he could cancel because I was going to be late anyways. He said he couldn't, and ended up finishing his way to my apartment at the time I was supposed to be at work. He kept apologizing, and I would mumble, "It's fine. I just need to get there." He ended up taking me to another store that was on the way and asked, "This is it, right?" It took me all I had not to blow up at him. I calmly gave him the directions to the actual store I work at, and just told him to please listen to the GPS next time. We finally get to my job, and I'm nearly 20 minutes late. And as soon as he parked, I muttered thanks, got out, and bolted to the office to clock in. An hour or so into my shift, one of my managers came up to me to tell me that my Uber driver has been harassing the people in the front of the store trying to get a hold of me, and my manager to take fault for being late and apologize to me. You need a membership to shop there, so he kept getting kicked out. He tried 4 or 5 separate times to come in. Another hour goes by, and a different manager approached me to let me know that the Uber driver had resorted to blowing up the store's phone, begging to speak to me. She had asked me not to leave alone and be on the lookout in case he comes back. I contacted Uber support multiple times to let them know, and you want to know what they did about it? They gave me a $3 credit. I made sure to give him a 1 star so I wouldn't get him as a driver again. But it's just scary to think that he knows where I work and where I live. My uncle is a pedophile fuckface. I'll just recap some of what he's done. Had 2 6 to 8-year-olds do inappropriate stuff while he filmed it. Tried to kill himself in prison, which didn't work. Got out on good behavior, only to play sexual truth or dare with a 12-year-old. Went back to prison, then escaped, and was a wanted fugitive. None of this I knew until I was 18. I remember having a nice police officer at our bus stop as kids. Anywho, this event takes place in October of 2013. I lived in one state and took a sudden trip to another state because my grandfather fell and had a stroke and was kept in hospice, but obviously gone. I didn't know this until well after the fact, but my uncle was hiding out at my grandparents' house. They're both gone now, so I can't report my grandma even if I wanted to. She defended her son, so she's a piece of shit too. My son is in prison because of those kids. The day they disconnected my grandfather from life support, I chose to stay behind. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to cry anymore in front of anyone. My uncle, being a fugitive, which I didn't realize at the time, had to stay there too. My mom insisted my brother stay as well. No real reason given at that time. I decided, since there's nothing good to watch on TV, that I'd play a game of life on my grandma's computer. About a good 20 minutes in, I feel footsteps behind me. Due to the weak floor, pretty heavy, but quiet steps. I knew it was my uncle, but I thought that he was grabbing something like clothes from the closet and dismissed it, focusing on my game. Then I hear heavy breathing. Maybe I'm just imagining it. Maybe there's a breeze? Then I hear my name being quietly moaned from inside the closet behind me. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I just closed my game and walked into the other room. It was another hour until my family members returned from the hospital. I sat with my brother, watching TV. I tried to avoid looking at my uncle, but I glanced over when my brother got up to go to the bathroom, passing by where my uncle was sitting, and noticed him looking at my legs with his hand holding his junk from the outside of his pants. I've never told anyone this. I was just a teenager at the time. Fuck you, uncle. I hope you rot in prison. I hope the other inmates beat you up for what you did.
My friends and I thought going for a hike would be a fun activity, since all we do is play video games. We live in a city that I cannot say for private reasons. We all took the same car. There were 4 of us: Tara, Robert, Olivia, and me. Emily, the driver, took 4 hours, and once we got there, the sun was starting to set. There was traffic, so it had taken much longer than it should have. Although it was getting darker, we did not want to waste this trip. I walked out of the car. All of my friends had gotten out on the other side with the trail on it, but I, being my dumb self, got out on the side with all the overgrown grass. As I got out, I looked at my feet. Then I looked up. "Oh my God," I screamed, and everybody came around the car to look. "Oh, holy shit," Robert said while he stared at all the blood and body parts of an animal scattered. The smell hit me like a wave. My eyes started to water, and I went back into the car. I looked out the window at everybody else. They all started to walk up the trail. so I ran up to catch up with them. We have to make up as much time as we can. It's getting dark, and we don't have time to stare at what happens when animals die, Robert told me. I glanced around. Something wasn't right. I looked to my left and stopped dead in my tracks. Olivia had seemed to notice too, because she screamed. Olivia had grabbed my hand, and we both ran to the other side of the woods. As we ran and left the group, I tried to make out what I saw. The antlers, long arms, skin so tight and pale you could see bones, and the black eyes that seemed to suck in all light. This wasn't a wolf. It was a wendigo. Oliver and I kept on running until it was so dark we could not see any more. I lay down on the fallen leaves next to the big rock. At this point, I did not care about any bugs. I slowly drifted off into a dead sleep. Soon after I woke up, screams were all that I could hear. Then it all stopped. A voice came out from the darkness. "Help!" A voice with no energy in it called out. I got up and ran with Olivia until we found our car again. I was bleeding from all the pricker bushes. I waited with Olivia in the car until any others could come. Hours had passed, and through those hours, I stared at the woods, seeing yellow eyes occasionally showing through the car lights. Once the sun had started to rise, Tara came through the woods in tears. I found Robert. He was in the clearing next to the rock, dead. I realized he was who called out for help. Years later, I have now just started to tell people about what had happened. Never leave your friends alone in the woods at night.
So it was the summer of 2013. I'm 21 and just finished my junior year in college. The second week of August, a group of my friends and I go on an 8-day camping trip. It's 7 of us in total. There's 4 guys and 3 girls. We're camping in a semi-remote campground in the White Mountains of NH. It was a large campground, but very few other campers were there. There were a few filled sites near the front of the campground, but we purposefully requested a site off in the back corner. We were completely by ourselves. During the trip, we planned a white water rafting trip for one of the other days. We were hiking Mount Washington towards the end of the trip, and thought maybe we'd do 1 to 2 other small hikes, with 1 to 2 days of just chilling by the lake at the campground. We also planned on doing plenty of drinking during the evenings. The first couple of days, the trip was fantastic. White water rafting was a blast. Everything is going just great. So it's the evening of our 3rd day. We have a roaring fire going. We're all just hanging out at the campsite drinking and fucking around. It's around 9:30 when a disheveled-looking man walks past our site. His clothes are kind of torn and worn out. Messy, tangled hair. He looks like he's maybe in his mid-40s. This isn't weird, though. We all just think it's another camper doing a late evening stroll around the campground. About an hour and a half later, we see the same man walk past our site in the same direction. This time, he walks a little slower. Almost with a bit of a limp this time. We're all pretty drunk at this point. I think one of us might have yelled something out to him, but he just ignores us and keeps on walking. Mildly strange, but still, it probably just was someone who wanted to take a long walk. We wrap up the night at around 1:30 to 2. The fire is dying down, and we head back to our tents. I usually love sleeping while camping. I usually find it extremely peaceful, but for some reason, I was having trouble sleeping this night. I get up to go pee in the woods, and when I do, I see a faint light maybe about 50 to 75 yards ahead of me in the woods. It looks like a dim flashlight or something familiar. I decide I want to investigate it. I go back to the tent. One of my other buddies is still awake, so I tell him about it. We get up to investigate, and when we do, the light is no longer on. Feeling a little unnerved, I shine my flashlight around the woods a little bit, but don't see anything, so I decide maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me before, and I just head back to bed. Sometime later that night, I wake up to a terrifying scream. It was Sarah, one of the girls that we were camping with. I jump out of my tent as quickly as possible and nearly run into her as she's running back into our sight. She's still screaming, though. She screams that there was a man standing in the middle of the woods. Now our whole party is awake and freaking out. I try to calm Sarah down enough to get her to explain what had actually happened. She says she went to pee in the woods and saw the man from earlier just standing about 15 feet from her, not moving, like a statue. We're all freaking out, yelling, screaming, making a giant commotion. I'm internally freaking out too, but try to calm everyone down enough so that we can actually go do something. We obviously decide to get the fuck out of there. We frantically take down our tents, basically just ripping the poles out and throwing everything back into our cars. Then we speed out of there. It's around 4 a.m. We're in 2 separate cars and decide to just drive away from the campsite and try to clear our heads. Eventually, around 5:30, we find a small diner that's open and decide to head in for some breakfast. We all have different theories about what the hell just happened. Some of us think we just ran into a homeless guy who was camping out in the woods and was surprised by us. Some of the girls think maybe he was purposely stalking us. Either way, obviously none of us are comfortable staying at that campground again. I head back to the front desk of the campground with the 2 other guys. We explain what happened, and the guys at the front desk actually seemed to believe us, but said there was definitely no other campers currently that fit the description of the guy. They were insanely nice about it, though, and actually refunded most of the remainder of our stay, which astonished me. As a group, we decided that fuck it. We weren't letting one freaky guy ruin our trip. We go and find another campground that's a good ways away to stay in. Fast forward about 2 days. We're hiking Mount Washington. We get up real early and get the mountain at around 7:30 to start hiking up. We're a little over halfway up the mountain and we see the very same guy hiking down. Though this time, he looks much better. His hair isn't crazy. His hiking clothes are relatively clean this time. We're all just frozen. A few of us let out a surprised scream. He just strolls past us with this massive grin. Luckily, there are enough hikers nearby that nothing could really happen. We decide to continue hiking up anyways, since he is headed to the opposite direction, and hope we just never encounter him again. We did finish the hike, and luckily didn't see him. After that, we decided to cut the trip a couple days short. Looking back on it, we've all come to the conclusion we were likely being stalked in some way. If it was just some homeless guy in the woods near the campground, what the hell is he doing hiking down Mount Washington a couple days later? It was pretty unnerving and a bizarre incident for sure.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.